Hi friends, Molten here, and in this video I'll be looking at the stone wall from the black side. So contrary to its actual name, the stone wall leaves a lot of weaknesses behind in white's position, and in this video I'll show you a few options which I play myself in order to neutralize this opening of the board. So stick around and I'll see you very soon. So the stone wall can be reached from two different move orders, one d4 and one f4, but most people who play it will play one f4, after which we reply one d5, knight f3, g6, e3, and now depending on your playing style, I'm going to give you two different opening choices to choose from. So the first one is going to be a little bit more aggressive, and we're going to play the move knight to f6, which is also the main line in this position. After d4, we play c5, c3, knight c6, bishop d3. Now the regular way of playing it would be to put the bishop on g7 and to castle kingside, and this is perfectly solid and playable, but we're going to opt for something a little bit more aggressive. We'll take on d4. After the captures, the whole point of delaying the bishop to g7 is that we're not going to castle kingside, so we're going to play the move bishop to f5 to trade off these light squared bishops and try to open up the f file. So this is also a useful idea to remember in other similar openings and structures, such as the Caro-Kann, which is seen a lot. And here if white captures on f5, we capture back. And the doubling of the f pawns don't really matter because we get the open g file. After castles, we play e6. And let's say, for example, white goes queen e2. Well, we're going to put the queen on c7. Knight e5, the bishop will go to d6. And from here on, we can see that black will castle queenside and put the rooks on the g8 square and possibly chuck the knight into the e4 square, where if white ever captures it later on, we'll get a strong protected pass pawn in the center. And the position is very unclear and leads to some very sharp and double-edged play. So this is the first option. The second option, if we go back to move 3, is to play bishop to g7. So this one's going to be a little bit more positional. So after d4 here, instead of developing the knight to f6, I'm suggesting knight to h6 instead. And you'll see exactly the reason why we play this move. So after bishop d3, castles, castles, c5 to attack the center, pawn goes to c3, queen goes to c7 to defend the pawn, knight goes to d2, and here we see the whole point of knight h6. Black plays the move bishop to f5, and the knight is well guarding the piece here, so we can capture back on f5. If white forgoes the diagonal, then he loses control and his bishop becomes a little bit more passive. So if he captures instead, we capture back with the knight, queen e2, knight d7. So the advantage of not developing our knight to c6 is that the knight's going to go to d7 and f6, and we're going to fight for this important e4 square instead. As we'll see after queen d3, knight can go to f6, knight e5, and we can drop the knight back to d6 whenever we want. For example, rook c8. Let's say white plays the move pawn to g4. The knight drops back to d6. And we can see that black is fighting for this e4 square, and with the light square bishops off the board, it's much easier to gain control over this outpost or weak square in the center. Whereas the weak square on e5, well, we can kick the knight out whenever we want with the move pawn to f6. So here definitely black has a positional advantage. So this is a good option if you want something that's fairly solid and easy to play, and you just want to fight for this e4 square, which is one of the main problems with the stone wall structure in general. So another way you can play it, especially if you know your opponent's going to go into a stone wall, and especially for those who play, say, a Grunfeld or King's Indian, is to play the move pawn to g6. So after f4, we can see that our opponent is going into this structure. So we continue with bishop g7, knight f3, and instead of playing the move pawn to d5, Black will play the move pawn to d6, castles, and then we'll immediately put pressure on the white center with the move pawn to c5. The idea is that if white tries to go for the same structure, because we haven't pushed our pawn to d5, we have a lot more options, and we can challenge the center even more with knight c6, let's say knight d2, and then immediately push the other pawn to e5, completely exploding white's structure and opening up the center before he's really ready to get his attack going. And I find this is very unpleasant from the white side because he doesn't get exactly what he's looking for, and black is already more than fine. So these are my recommendations on what to play against the Stonewall. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.